Namaste, and thank you so much for joining me. Today, I would like to share with you a few warm ups to just keep things nice and fluid and loose and moving in your hips. We're going to start seated on a mat. If you have some kind of prop that you can use today, that would allow you to have a little bit more freedom as we get moving. So, taking your block, we'll go ahead and start seated on that. If you have that, you could always use something such as a hard-covered book or a rolled blanket. That's also nice for supporting the shins and the ankles. As you're coming into your seated pose, we're just going to start to move the body, right? Simply swaying from side to side, getting to know what's happening here, maybe some forward and back movements, starting to notice this anterior and posterior tilt of the pelvis, and feeling how your sits bones are getting into this posture, rooting on your prop. Once you find that your sits bones are nice and rooted, we're just looking for the uprightness of the spine with natural curvature, right? So we're not filling in the low back to decrease the curvature. We're not leaning in an excessive back bend, just right there in the center of your pelvis. And then resting the shoulders, resting the palms. They could be in your lap, or you might rest them at the knees, whatever's most suitable for you today. And taking a moment to close your eyes and tune into the wonderful aliveness within. And as you begin to find yourself more aware, you can slow and deepen your breath for a few more rounds. And we're just breathing solely in and out through the nose. And from that centered space, inviting the eyes back into the space that's around you. And we'll start to walk the hands forward. And if you've chosen the seated pose, Virasana, as I am, you can walk your hands a little wider and start to sway a little bit from side to side. If you've chosen a cross-legged position, you can also rest forward, maybe placing the forearms and swaying from side to side. So choosing what's most appropriate for you. We're just moving a little bit, starting to check into the shoulder blades and scapula. Again, checking in with what's happening in your hips today, noticing what's happening in your low back. And most important, as you're moving, not trying to force the movements. This is more of an investigation, exploring sensation. And then slowly returning back to the uprightness of the spine. And once you find yourself finding that center again, we're going to go ahead and step forward with our right foot. As you're stepping forward with your right foot, we're just rooting into the bottom of the right foot and noticing that the right knee remains in an upright position and leaning towards that. If for some reason this variation, allowing the heel to be on the outside of the hip, is not as comfortable for you, you're more than welcome to tuck your left heel behind your right foot. And just as before, we're leaning into that, putting some pressure into the bottom of the right foot. noticing some compression in the right hip. And taking your time to return to the uprightness of the spine. And again, choosing your variation. Maybe you're in the external rotation in the hip. Maybe you're working with the internal rotation of the hip. And whichever variation you're taking, we're going to go ahead and start to reach out to the left side. We want to make sure that we're placing the left palm fully and maintaining the uprightness in the right side, but starting to draw out of the right hip. So you can support with your right hand here. Some of you might feel comfortable enough to reach and extend with the right arm, making sure that's in line with your ear, that the palm is facing down. We're not creating a bend in the elbow. We want a straight line of energy if you're reaching. So choosing that, maybe again, supporting here at the knee, maybe reaching. As the body starts to come into the pose, you might have an opportunity to lean all the way to the forearm. And again, you might support with your hand. You might be reaching and extending. Choosing what's most appropriate for your practice today. Most important, breathing. And wherever you are, we're pressing into the left palm, returning back to center. And as we return back to center, we're just going to start to rotate the torso towards the right knee. And that might be hugging. It might be placing the elbow to the outside of the knee, allowing your left palm to touch your right shoulder. Once you find the rotation of your spine, just returning your gaze back towards your left shoulder. Encouraging the rotation of your rib cage, noticing the gentle tug on the SI joint. Try to relax your lower belly. As you're softening, there might be more space to rotate. Make sure your breath is continuing to flow in and out through the nose. And slowly returning back to center. As you return back to center, we're going to tip ourselves over and come back to a seated posture. If you did the posture where you're on your knees, maybe this time you're crossing your ankles. And we're just returning to that slow movement from side to side. So again, whichever position most suitable for you, we're starting to lean into this, maybe bowing one shoulder, the other. And as you return, we're stepping our left foot forward. So again, you might be tucking the right heel behind your left heel, or you might be working with the bent knee back position, whichever is most appropriate for your practice. From here, we're making sure that we walk the heel in a little bit. We're starting to lean towards this left knee, finding that compression in the hip, rooting through all four corners of the foot. Let's take a few breaths here, breathing in and out through the nose. And returning to the uprightness of your spine. This time, we're allowing the right palm to extend towards the outside, and we're starting to draw away from the left hip. And you can check in. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to start to reach the arm. Continuing to stimulate your breath, expanding your lungs. And as the body is starting to create more space, there might be an opportunity to start to drift towards the forearm. Again, choose your variation. And we're allowing the body to express its fullness. So we're not pushing or forcing in any way, just noticing the space and approaching that lightly. And most important, the breath continues to deepen and also maintaining a balance between the inhalations and exhalations. Taking your time, pushing into the right palm, returning to an upright position. And we're going to either hug the left knee or invite the elbow to the outside. Rotating the spine. So you're coming into this posture, turning your gaze off your right shoulder. And just work on the rotation of the spine. Keeping the neck relaxed, breathing deeply, softening the lower belly. And just like before, approaching the rotation mindfully, noticing space, softening into that space. And unwinding. We're returning to your chosen seated position. So again, that might be Virasana on the knees. You might be working with a cross-legged position. And just resting the palms, we're coming back to that slow movement, swaying from side to side. Checking in with your shoulder blades, checking in with the movement of the lumbar spine, how that shifts weight into one side of the pelvis and then the other. And this time we're just going to settle in the forward fold, just relaxing either to the palms or the forearms, you choose. If it seems appropriate to begin to rest further forward, taking your skull towards the earth, maybe even taking hands towards the lower back, that's okay too. Working with your breath. And very slowly returning back to the uprightness of your spine. And we'll take a nice big inhale, reaching the palms facing each other up overhead. And exhaling, elbows down. All right, from here, we're making our way to hands and knees. So you can set any props that you might be using today off to the side. As you're arriving in hands and knees, we're just going to start to move in a U-shaped motion. So we're taking knees about hip width distance. We're leaning towards one side, shifting back, and then letting that weight travel towards your palm. And we're just working, noticing how the femur bone is rocking in the pelvis. And if this is a lot for your knees today, of course, you're more than welcome to use a blanket or something to support your knees. And we're going to start to move forward and back now. And you can choose the degree of that, maybe resting all the way back to extended child's pose. And shifting forward to either tabletop or shifting all the way forward, lengthening the spine. And we're returning, just rocking forward and back. Just taking 2 more movements forward and back. And then we're returning back to our tabletop position. So making sure that the knees are directly underneath the hips, hip width distance, resting wrists and shoulders in line. We're going to start to round the spine in a cat-like back. And sinking your belly, taking your gaze forward. We're exhaling, rounding the spine. Inhale, belly forward. Exhale, rounding the spine. Inhale, belly forward. Rounding, exhale. And inhale forward. Returning to a neutral spine. And we're taking our time to step forward with the right foot. Once you step forward with the right foot, we're just placing the right hand on the knee. And we're going to move forward and back. What we're looking for here is that as we're lunging, we're creating length in the left leg, and we're hinging in the hip, drawing the knee towards the toes on the right side. Try to keep your foot completely planted as you're moving forward and back. And you might find yourself moving your hand, continuously moving your hand. Try to keep your palm also positioned on the mat in one place, even if that limits your forward and back. And just seeing what's possible, taking the gaze off to the right side, noticing what's possible here. Wonderful. Let's see if we can take the right palm to the inside now. And you can heel toe your right foot a little bit wider. And then once you do so, we're lifting the toes, turning them out to the right side. Try to rest down either to your palms as you lunge towards the right side, maybe resting to one forearm, left forearm, maybe both. Checking in, again, noticing what's available for you. Mindful breathing. And very slowly beginning to return back to the palms if you're on your forearms. Once you have your palms rested, we're lifting the toes and returning them back in line with the side of the mat and also with the knee. From there, we're going to take that right knee back and take your time. Forward and back movements again. Maybe that's tabletop to child's pose. Maybe that's moving back to child's pose and shifting all the way forward. Just checking in with what's possible. You might surprise yourself. There might be more space than you realize. All right, returning back to that neutral position. This time we're stepping forward with our left foot and placing the left hand on the knee. We're gazing off to the left side as we do this. We're shifting forward and back. So knee is moving in line with the ankle, shifting towards the toes. We're also focusing on the length of the right leg as we shift forward and back. There's no rush in this movement. Try to keep your palm and your foot completely planted. All right. And from here, we're taking both of the hands to the inside. We're starting to work towards our external rotation. So you're lifting the left toes, turning them out to the side, lunging into that a little bit, and then deciding maybe you're on your palms today, perhaps lowering towards one forearm, maybe both. We'll take about 5 to 7 breaths here. Slowly returning back to the palms if you're on one or both forearm, and returning back to the alignment of the left foot. Instead of sweeping the left heel back, we're going to go ahead and take that in front of the right knee. So you're crossing the knees, and you might walk the knees a little closer together, trying to get them aligned. It just depends. We're going to start on the palms here, working with some cat-cow movements in the spine. If you feel like you're balanced and feel supported, I would like for you to take your right hand out to the side. As you turn your palm, we're just going to slide that hand to the small of the back. We're just going to continue with these movements. Again, this is just an opportunity. You might need both hands, and that's okay. After a few more rounds of this movement, returning the right palm if it was behind your back, we're hinging in the hips. So hinging in the hips might be just resting them back a little bit. If there's an opportunity to lower to the forearms, you're more than welcome to do that. Some of you might start to travel back further. There's no right or wrong in this. We just want to make sure that we are feeling that steel in the hips. Take your time, resting to wherever is most appropriate for you. Breathing in and out through the nose. Slowly returning back to the palms. As you walk your palms back to center, we're releasing the right leg. and bringing that knee back to the side. From here, let's return to a few more of our cat-cow movements. We're just rounding the spine and sinking the belly, rocking the rib cage maybe, rounding the spine and sinking the belly. Just a few more times. All right. Very carefully, we're taking our left knee behind the right. Once you cross the left knee behind the right, starting to hinge back. That might be resting towards your forearms. Again, some of you might rest back a little deeper in that. There's no right or wrong, just hinging in the hips, finding your breath. And carefully lifting your gaze, starting to return back towards your palms. We're going to work with cat-cow movements, maintaining this crossing or binding of the knees. And if it feels okay and you feel balanced, this time we're reaching our left arm out, taking the left palm to the small of the back, and working with a rotation of the pelvis, this tilting of the pelvis, and cat-cow movement in the spine. All right, taking your time, starting to return your left palm if you placed it behind your back. We're extending our left leg back and returning that to the left side. From here, we're crossing the ankles, sitting, and extending the legs outward. Take a moment to rest weight into your palms. And we're just going to move the ankles and move the toes. And then start to sway from the hip joint in and out with the feet. Carefully moving the hips forward. We're making our way all the way down to the back, taking a full body stretch, arms reaching in line with your ears. Try to shift your hips by micro bending one knee and then the other. And then carefully stepping your feet to the earth, releasing the arms to the sides. We're just rocking the knees from one side to the other. And we're working with deep internal rotations. So feet are hip width distance. We're just letting the knees drift inward and outward. Take your time, shifting from one side to the other, rocking across the glute muscles, noticing that shift across the sacrum. And returning back to center with this, hugging the right knee in. And you might work with some pointing and flexing, perhaps rotations in the right ankle. Resting your right foot back on the mat, and we'll hug the left knee in. Again, maybe pointing and flexing, rotations in the ankle. And from here, we're allowing ourselves to return to that full body stretch, both legs reaching, both arms reaching. Inviting the knees in and rocking from side to side. Taking your time to support either behind the knees, or if you're comfortable, wrapping your elbows behind the knees and interlacing your fingers. Once you arrive, let your feet face upward towards the sky. Keep your knees and your shins relaxed and separated. You might return back to some slow rocking from side to side. And at some point, finding the center of this pose, relaxing all the muscles that support the spine, sinking into that. Try to relax the center of your throat. Relax your cheekbones and your eyes, softening the mouth, the tongue, and jaw. And then releasing your hold, returning to that full body stretch. Moving your ankles and toes, moving your wrist and fingers. And from here, returning the arms to the sides and stepping your feet back to the earth. We're crossing the left ankle over the right knee, and we're just going to take our time to shift from side to side. You might find you can tap the foot and tap the knee as you rock. Try to encourage the left knee staying outward, keeping the left hip open. And the next time you shift towards the right side, resting the foot if that's possible, maybe even grasping the ankle with the right hand. And from there, left arm reaches in line with the ear. And we'll take 3 full breaths, breathing in and out. Inviting breath and out. One more, breathing in and out. Releasing the left hand if it's reaching, bringing your pose back to center. We're going to change the crossing as right ankle over left knee, taking your time to shift slowly from side to side, perhaps tapping the foot and then tapping the knee. And the next time that you rotate to the left side, resting, maybe foot plants, perhaps grasping the ankle, reaching with the right arm if appropriate, breathing deeply in and out, breathing in and out. One more breath in and out. Releasing the right arm, traveling back to center, releasing both legs, taking our full body stretch. And carefully planting the feet, rocking from side to side. At some point, rocking towards whichever side is suitable for you. Returning back to a seated pose. And if you have that prop nearby, find yourself seated on your prop. As you arrive, softening your eyes, coming back into the natural flow of breath. And most important, thanking yourself for setting aside this time today to practice, to honor your breath and all those wonderful forms and expressions that the body took. And knowing the great connectedness to all beings and all things. I thank you for sharing your practice. Namaste.